OSBT Standard Procedure 02300, Workplace Violence Safety Program. To ensure orderly operations and provide the best possible work environment, One Source Building Technologies expects employees to follow rules of conduct that will protect the interest and safety of all employees in the organization. It is not possible to list all the forms of behavior that are considered unacceptable in the workplace. The following examples of infractions of rules of conduct may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. Unacceptable violations. Conduct that reflects adversely upon you. One Source Building Technologies. Making or publishing false or malicious statements concerning an employee, supplier, client, or One Source Building Technologies. Fighting or threatening violence in the workplace. Boisterous or disruptive activity in the workplace. Insubordination or other disrespectful conduct. Supplying false or misleading information. Personal use of company property, theft or inappropriate removal or possession of property, engaging in unethical or illegal conduct. Illegal violations. Sexual or other unlawful or unwelcome harassment, unwanted sexual advances, offering employment benefits in exchange for sexual favors, making or threatening reprisals after a negative response to sexual advances, visual conduct that includes leering, making sexual gestures, or displaying of sexually suggestive objects or pictures, cartoons, or posters. Verbal conduct that includes making or using derogatory comments, epithets, slurs, or jokes. Verbal sexual advances or propositions. Verbal abuse of a sexual nature. Graphic verbal commentaries about an individual's body. Sexually degrading words used to describe an individual, or suggestive or obscene letters, notes, or invitations. Physical conduct that includes touching, assaulting, or impeding or blocking movements. Other unlawful or unwelcome harassment. It is illegal to harass an employee because of race, color, religion, sex, including pregnancy, national origin, age, 40 or older, disability, or genetic information. It is also illegal to harass someone because they have complained about discrimination, filed a charge of discrimination, or participated in an employment discrimination investigation or lawsuit. Harassment can take the form of slurs, graffiti, offensive or derogatory comments, or other verbal or physical conduct. Sexual harassment, including unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other conduct of a sexual nature, is also unlawful. Although the law does not prohibit simple teasing, offhand comments, or isolated incidents that are not very serious, harassment is illegal if it is so frequent or severe that it creates a hostile or offensive work environment, or if it results in an adverse employment decision, such as a victim being fired or demoted. The harasser can be the victim's supervisor, a supervisor in another area, a coworker, or someone who is not an employee of the employer, such as a client or customer. Harassment outside of the workplace may also be illegal if there is a link with the workplace. For example, if a supervisor harasses an employee while driving the employee to a meeting. And as Albert Einstein said, setting an example is not the main means of influencing another, it is the only means. Workplace violence, illegal violations, discrimination. Age discrimination. Age discrimination involves treating someone, an applicant or employee, less favorably because of his or her age. Disability discrimination. Disability. The law requires an employer to provide reasonable accommodations to an employee or job applicant with a disability, unless doing so would cause significant difficulty or expense for the employer. Undue hardship. Equal pay compensation discrimination. The Equal Pay Act requires that men and women in the same workplace be given equal pay for equal work. The jobs need not be identical, but they must be substantially equal. Job content, not job titles, determines whether jobs are substantially equal. All forms of pay are covered by this law, including salary, overtime pay, bonuses, stock options, profit sharing, and bonus plans, life insurance, vacation and holiday pay, cleaning or gasoline allowances, hotel accommodations, reimbursement for travel expenses and benefits. If there is an inequality in wages between men and women, employers may not reduce the wages of either sex to equalize their pay. Race, color discrimination. Race discrimination involves treating someone, an applicant or employee, unfavorably because he or she is of a certain race or because of personal characteristics associated with race, such as hair texture, skin color, or certain facial features. Color discrimination involves treating someone unfavorably because of skin color complexion. Workplace violence, illegal violations, discrimination. Religion. Religious discrimination involves treating a person, an applicant or employee, unfavorably because of his or her religious beliefs. The law protects not only people who belong to traditional, organized religions such as Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, and Judaism, but also others who have sincerely held religious, ethical, or moral beliefs. Retaliation. The law makes it illegal to fire, demote, harass, or otherwise retaliate against people, applicants, or employees because they filed a charge of discrimination, because they complained to their employer about discrimination on the job, or because they participated in an employment discrimination proceeding, such as an investigation or lawsuit. For example, it is illegal for an employer to refuse to promote an employee because she filed a charge of discrimination with the EEOC, even if the EEOC later determined no discrimination occurred. The law forbids retaliation when it comes to any aspect of employment, including hiring, firing, pay, job assignments, promotion, layoff, training, fringe benefits, and any other terms or conditions of employment. Constructive discharge, forced to resign. Discriminatory practices also include constructive discharge or forcing an employee to resign by making the work environment so intolerable a reasonable person would not be able to stay. Stop workplace bullying. It's not normal, it's unreasonable. Workplace bullying and disruptive behavior. Illegal violations. Workplace bullying refers to repeated, unreasonable actions of individuals or a group directed towards an employee or a group of employees, which are intended to intimidate, degrade, humiliate, or undermine, or which create a risk to the health or safety of the employee. Unwarranted or invalid criticism. Blame without factual justification. Being treated differently than the rest of your work group. Being sworn at. Exclusion or social isolation. Being shouted at or being humiliated. Excessive monitoring or micromanaging. Being given work. Unrealistic deadlines. Workplace violence. What is workplace violence? Workplace violence is any act or threat of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or other threatening, disruptive behavior that occurs at the worksite. It ranges from threats and verbal abuse to physical assaults and even homicide. Who is at risk of workplace violence? Nearly 2 million American workers report having been victims of workplace violence each year. Unfortunately, many more cases go unreported. The truth is, workplace violence could strike anywhere, anytime, and no one is immune. Research has identified factors that may increase the risk of violence for some workers at certain work sites. Such factors include exchanging money with the public and working with volatile, unstable people. Working alone or in an isolated area may also contribute to the potential for violence. Providing services and care and working where alcohol is served may also impact the likelihood of violence. Time of day and location of work, such as working late at night or in areas with high crime rates, are also risk factors that should be considering when addressing issues of workplace violence. Among those with higher risk are workers who exchange money with the public, delivery drivers, healthcare professionals, public service workers, customer service agents, law enforcement personnel, and those who work alone or in small groups. Workplace violence. How can workplace violence hazards be reduced? In most workplaces where risk factors can be identified, the risk of assault can be prevented or minimized if employers take appropriate precautions. One of the best protections employers can offer their workers is to establish a zero tolerance policy towards workplace violence. This policy should cover all workers, patients, clients, visitors, contractors, and anyone else who may come in contact with company personnel. By assessing their work sites, employers can identify methods for reducing the likelihood of incidents occurring. OSBT believes that a well written and implemented workplace violence prevention program combined with engineering controls, administrative controls, and training can reduce the incidence of workplace violence in both the private sector and federal workplaces. This workplace violence prevention program is incorporated into an injury and illness prevention program, employee handbook, and standard operating procedures. It is critical to ensure that all workers know the policy and understand that all claims of workplace violence will be investigated and remedied promptly. Workplace violence. Protected activity includes opposition to a practice believed to be unlawful discrimination, engaging in prohibited discrimination. Opposition is protected from retaliation as long as it is based on a reasonable good faith belief that the complained of practice violates anti discrimination law and the manner of the opposition is reasonable. Examples of protected opposition include complaining to anyone about alleged discrimination against oneself or others, threatening to file a charge of discrimination, picketing in opposition to discrimination, or refusing to obey an order reasonably believed to be discriminatory. Examples of activities that are not protected opposition include actions that interfere with job performance so as to render the employee ineffective, or unlawful activities such as acts or threats of violence. Workplace violence. One Source Building Technologies is committed to all employees. Part of this commitment is encouraging an open and frank atmosphere in which any problem, complaint, suggestion, or question receives a timely response from the company's supervisors and management. One Source Building Technologies strive to ensure fair treatment of all employees. Supervisors, managers, and employees are expected to treat each other with mutual respect. Employees are encouraged to offer positive and constructive criticism. If employees disagree with established rules of conduct, policies, or practices, they can express their concern through the problem resolution procedure. No employee will be penalized formally or informally for voicing a complaint with the company in a reasonable business-like manner or for using the problem resolution procedure. If a situation occurs when employees believe that a condition of employment or a decision affecting them is unjust or inequitable, they are encouraged to bring those issues to management's attention using the same procedure described in the harassment policy. Protect your organization from high risk behavior. Employee presents problem to immediate supervisor at OneSource Building Technologies after incident occurs. Supervisor engages human resources. If the complaint is directed at the current supervisor, employee may present problem directly to human resources. Human resources at OneSource Building Technology responds to problem after consulting with appropriate management. Human resources documents discussion. Human Resources Department at OneSource Building Technologies informs employee of decision and forwards copy of written response to employee's file. Workplace violence training is fast becoming a crucial element of an ethics and compliance program. Rather than expecting employees to predict this behavior, this workplace violence training course assists employees in recognizing high risk behaviors and encourages them to share their concerns to protect themselves, their coworkers, and the public. 7 tips for preventing workplace violence. Number 1, assess your work environment. Critically examine all areas of your work environment, including parking lots, entryways, reception areas, work areas, and offices. Is the lighting adequate? Are there convenient escape routes? Do you have a method to summon assistance? Number 2, pay attention to the warning signs. Many people who become violent communicate their intentions in advance. Threats from customers, coworkers, or third parties should be reported immediately. Number 3, promote respect. The best way to prevent violence in the workplace is to foster a day-to-day attitude of respect and consideration in your work environment. Number 4, eliminate potential weapons. Take a mental inventory of objects available in your immediate work area that could be potential weapons. Remove or secure objects that could be thrown. Number 5, know your violence response procedures. Violence response procedures are simple plans designed to minimize injury during a violent incident. These procedures should include a plan to summon assistance and move people to a safe area. Number 6, trust your instincts. Don't ignore your internal warning system. If you sense impending danger, react accordingly. Number 7, use a team approach. If you are in a situation in which hostility could occur, use the buddy system. To provide a safe and violence free workplace, we prohibit any employee from engaging in any act either on company premises or during the performance of work related duties that threatens the safety of another employee or visitor, affects the health, life, or well being of an employee or visitor, results in harm to an employee or visitor. Such acts include, but are not limited to, threatening, intimidating, coercing, harassing, or assaulting another person, sexually harassing an employee or visitor, carrying concealed weapons or concealing a weapon on the property, allowing unauthorized persons access to the building or confidential information without management permission, using, duplicating, or possessing keys to the building or offices within the building without authorization, stealing or attempting to steal property of the companies, another employee or visitor, damaging or attempting to damage property of the companies, another employee or visitor. Workplace violence prevention training for employees will include, at minimum, the following topics: our company's workplace violence policy, encouragement to report incidents and the procedure to do so, ways of preventing or diffusing volatile situations or aggressive behavior, ways to deal with hostile persons, managing anger, techniques and skills to resolve conflicts, stress, stress management, relaxation techniques, wellness training, security procedures, for example, the location and operation of safety devices such as alarm systems, personal security measures. First violation. Employees advised they are not operating within OSBT ethical guidelines. The supervisor will instruct the employee on how to adhere to the professional ethical standards as outlined in the workplace violence standard operating procedures. The supervisor will also issue a written employee safety warning report and place a safety warning report in the employee's file. Second violation. Employee is advised they are not operating within OSBT ethical guidelines. The supervisor will instruct the employee on how to adhere to the professional ethical standards as outlined in the workplace violence standard operating procedures. The supervisor will complete an investigation to determine the cause of the violation. Depending on the findings, the supervisor will issue a written employee safety warning report and place the safety warning report in the employee's file. The employee is subject to a 3-day suspension without pay. Third violation. Employees advise they are not operating within OSBT ethical guidelines. The supervisor will instruct the employee on how to adhere to the professional ethical standards as outlined in the workplace violence standard operating procedure. The supervisor will complete an investigation to determine the cause of the violation. Depending on the findings, the supervisor will issue a written employee safety warning report and place a safety warning report in the employee's file. A third violation within 6 months of the first violation will result in further disciplinary action up to and including termination. Stop. Setting an example is not the main means of influencing another. It is the only means. Albert Einstein. This concludes workplace violence training. Please copy and paste the test link into your browser and begin the quiz.